With just days away until the greatest show on earth, the Cheltenham Festival, we are here at Kempton, where Nicky Henderson puts some of his main protagonists through their paces in the lead up to the big 4 days in March, including of course CONSITUTION HILL and LULAMBA. Now Nicky Henderson has trained 73 winners at the festival, including the likes of CONSITUTION HILL, who won the Unibet Champion Hurdle back in 2023. The big question is, can he regain his crown? Well, we caught up the master of Seven Barrows to find out exactly how he thinks he'll fare and also get the lowdown on his other contenders during the week. So here we are with Nicky Henderson, our Unibet ambassador, just days away from the biggest show on turf, of course, the Cheltenham Festival, and very much looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are. It's a tense sort of week, but I'm sure for you, Nicky, it's an enjoyable time as well.
Once it starts and you get there, it's enjoyable. Yeah, the bit before it's quite tense. I think everybody will be pleased when it's sort of the preps are over and the show begins.
And are you pleased with the lead you've had to this year's festival? Has everything sort of gone as you'd hoped?
It has, touch wood. I mean, yeah, they've been good. And, you know, so far you'd be very happy with the way the horses are as a whole, whereas we know where we were last year. We were distinctly unhappy with where they were. We were struggling to get them there and obviously didn't run a lot of them, whereas this time, if we could just hold it where we are now, we'd be thinking we're coming in a good place. I mean, but with obvious exception, and the one disaster is losing Sergino, who hopefully will be back. He's still struggling a bit, but we need him back for next year. But not having him on this squad is disappointing because he would just add quite a bit of flavour to it.
We've saddled 73 Cheltenham Festival winners. You are the leading UK-based trainer. You were until quite a few years ago the leading trainer overall until Mr. Mullins came and spoiled that party. The Unibet Champion Hurdle is a race you've got a fantastic record and you've won it 9 times before. We'll start with CONSITUTION HILL. It appears that everything has gone much better than what you were in the lead up to last year's race, albeit of course he didn't run in the end. Yeah,
last year, I mean, to be fair, the year started, it started actually with a fighting fifth last year being abandoned. Then he came to Kempton for the Christmas hurdle. That was fine, everything was great, but we were trying to go to the Unibet hurdle and he couldn't run because his scope was wrong. And then we were coming back into the Champion Hurdle. We thought we were all right. Kempton Gallop went disastrously wrong and he was sick after that. Then we got going and he got colic, and by the end of the season we'd missed everything and he looked dreadful. Thankfully, you know, he had another great summer with Charlie and Tracy Vigers, and bless her, she used to adore having him there, but he came in back looking really great, changed a few things around him, like his house, built him a new hotel to live in. And to be fair, 1 or 2 things, he did have a wind operation last summer as well. I do think that's probably helped. But in fact, I know it has. And Christmas hurdle, we weren't ready for the fighting fifth, so Sergino went and came off the subs bench to do that, which was great. Then he came here to Kempton for the Christmas hurdle. It was great. That was the day I was expecting. He could have got beaten that day. But to be fair, Lossiemouth probably didn't quite turn up herself either, so we got away with that. And then I've got to say my original intention was we don't need to do that again. We'll go straight to March. But he was just so well after it. You couldn't not go and take in the Unibet hurdle. And he had a lovely time. I mean, he ruined one of Cheltenham's hurdles, but that doesn't matter. He was terrific. And again, I wasn't really intending in coming to Kempton for a gallop, but he did a bit of work at home on Friday, and Nico felt it was still doing good, so he came and did that as well.
From what point of view did you and Nico think it would be a good idea to come for a racecourse gallop?
I think it amuses him as much as anything. I mean, I knew he was going to have to do about another 4. He'd need another 4 gallops probably at home to get here. They can become fairly monotonous. I know he loves doing it, and he's very good at sort of telling young whippersnapper, young horses that they're not very good as he just goes straight past them. He probably enjoys it to a degree because he loves his work and he loves his life, I think. But, you know, a day out like this does them the world of good. And it wasn't as if none of them were having a hard time. He certainly didn't have a hard time. He just had his usual bit of a laugh and a giggle. And like Sammy Tristan Davis said, when he goes past you, by gum, you know something's gone past you. He was flying.
I mean, he's 10 from 10. He's only been beaten once his career. Amazingly, how that happened, I'll never know in a point-to-point over in Ireland. But do you feel that he is as good as he has ever been, or do you feel he's even better than what he was, say, two seasons ago?
I think it'd be hard to say he's better, but I do think he's as good as we've had him, yes. I do. I mean, obviously miles better than last year, but if you go back to his Supreme Novice Hurdle and Champion Hurdles, yeah, I mean, he is back in that sort of shape, definitely.
Obviously, we're not entirely sure which horses are going to be taking him on. We expect Lossiemouth to take her chance. State Man, of course, a winner over in Ireland last time, and maybe Brighter Days Ahead. Do you feel it could prove to be quite a tactical race, and would you be also concerned about the fact that the £7 allowance that the mares get?
I can't see it being very tactical if Brighter Days Ahead comes, and I hear that might even have a pacemaker. So you could be pretty sure we're going to have a really solid gallop. Now that we do know doesn't worry him. They can go.
If anything, the faster
he can travel, and he's got his comfort zone is quick, and so I wouldn't worry about somebody blitzing it if he's going too fast. Nico will be able to. You know, he's a good judge, Nico. He's very solid at that, and he'll know if they're going too quick. And if it's one of them up there making the running and setting a fierce gallop, well, hopefully he should be able to tag them.
Let's talk about a few of your other entries at the week. I've got around sort of 30 individual horses entered. Obviously, they're all not going to run, but we'll spin through them in race day order. The Arkle, a race that you've won many times, Remittance Man the first, that was back in 1991. More recently, of course, Shiskin back in 2021. JANGO BAIE, currently 7-1 with Unibet to give you another success in the 2-mile novice. What did you make of his career so far of offences?
He's just done nothing wrong. His jumping's been very sound all the way. My biggest concern is really he has shown himself to be a very professional horse at 2.5 miles. He has won a Grade 1 hurdle over 2 miles around Aintree, so you have to be quite sharp for that. We've never tried him over 3. At 2.5 looks like it could be his ideal trip. But one way or another, obviously the 2.5 mile, the Turners, has gone. Typical, the 1 year you got a really good 2.5 mile horse that take the race away. And so you can't do that. That's where he would be if in last year's programme he'd have run in that 3 miles. Well, then you go you start bumping into Ballyburns and horses like that when you go to 3 mile road. So I think without Sagino, and you know that's where he was heading, and therefore obviously Django didn't really need to be taking him on. But now he can't be there. Interestingly, it's actually another 5-year-old of JP's mares. I think we're going to drop him back to 2 miles, and I mean he's sharp enough for that.
What were your thoughts after the Silly Hours, of course, which is over 2.5 at a stiff track like Sandown?
Very, 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 very soft ground. I don't think the ground helped him an awful lot. Nick said, there were various times earlier in the race he didn't even, down by the pond, 3 to jump, he wasn't going well enough to win, but he's tough. He just got bogged down a bit in places, and I think he's enough speed. I think he's sure to be up there. But his jumping, if he can hold that together as he has done so far, his jumping could hold him in pretty good stead. And
another good plus as well, he has won at the course, albeit over 2.5, so he has at least got some experience around those fences.
No, I think he's, I'd probably prefer a bit further, but under the circumstances, it's an open enough race.
Now, the Mares' Hurdle is also on the first day at Cheltenham. You won it with Marie's Rock back in 2022. Now, Joyeuse, obviously a question mark whether she may be supplemented, but at this stage, which way are you thinking? May she get given a supplementary entry?
Well, the first thought was possibly, well, if Lossiemouth and Brighter Days Ahead both elected to go for the Champion Hurdle, it would certainly open up the mares, and we might have a look at it. We were thinking of the Moor Battle Hurdle. We're not going to go there. But there are other things. You could easily run in the Imperial Cup.
It's a shame she's not qualified for the county.
But she can't run in the county. I mean, this is the irony of the whole thing. She can run in a very, very valuable, well, first of all, the most valuable handicap hurdle in England. And she's won that, but she's not allowed to run in Cheltenham. But she can run in the mares, yeah. So we'll just have to see. She's in good form. I mean, the issue really is, would she stay 2.5 miles? But, you know, you go that sort of gallop as they did at Newbury, and she still gets there going that easily. You'd have to think it's worth a shot, but we'll see.
Okay. The National Hunt Chase, a few changes to that race in the last couple of years. It's dropped down in distance. Also open out to conditional jockeys as well. You've got Ideal de Boer's entered in the race, a 40-1 shot with Unibet. Is he like to take his chance?
Well, if you saw him here on Saturday, he'd be 400-1 because I don't know what went wrong, and I can't find out what went wrong. I was rather... the whole point of running him here on Saturday was to get him into the National Hunt Chase, but one minute he looked like winning here on Saturday, and within 10 strides he couldn't get round. I don't know. Well, I cannot find a reason for it, and we'll just have to see.
Okay, let's move on to day 2, the Champion Chase, the feature on the Wednesday. Again, a great record for you in this race. Altior won it twice, Sprinter Sacra won it, then regained his crown. You've got Jonbon this year, finally able to get to take his chance in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. He's 4-5 with Unibet. He's a 9-time Grade 1 winner. How is he, I suppose, is the first question.
Again, we're very happy he didn't come to Kempton because he doesn't need to come to Kempton for a gallop. He does his stuff at home. He'd only get here and fuss and sweat, and he doesn't need winding up anymore. It's completely opposite to us there, Constitution Hill. Everything's gone well. He's been training very, very well. He'll have a school next week. He's got a couple of spins on the grass, and we're away. Paddy, who rides him every day, he says, I wish the race was tomorrow. He's in such good form. He is in very good form. And
he appears to, not that he wasn't sort of versatile before, but he just appears to be much more, the finished article, much more easier to sort of to manoeuvre. He's very sensible in his races. He's quite simple now. I suppose a few years ago you had to sort of ride him a little bit with kid gloves, so to speak. Yeah, when he was a young horse, he had his sort of, he was entertaining. But you had to be very, very careful with him. Anything would upset him. And away days and things were a trauma to him and us. He just he just sweats a lot. And as each year goes on, he starts at the beginning of the year, he gets himself in a terrible, he sweats buckets. I mean buckets. And he's got a lot better, and we have our own little ways of getting around these things with earplugs and various other, keep the lid on it. Cheltenham's the atmosphere gets to quite a lot of these horses, and but he's got much better at it, and I think he can control himself, and we can control him. So hopefully, he gets to the start all right this time. And then we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of pace. I'd be interested to see what's actually going to run. I say often the Champion Chase tends to cut up. You only see 4 or 5 runners this year. I think it could be quite a big field. Another question, Nicky, for you. Despite winning the Schlur Chase twice, a lot of people tend to think he doesn't handle Cheltenham that well. What would you say to those people? Well,
I can see their reasoning behind it, but I think if you've won the Schlur twice, you've got to say he doesn't do much wrong in it. It shouldn't bother him. I mean, Ascot's a big track, Sandown's a big track. He loves both of those. They're all up and down hills and down dales, and no, that's no problem to him. I can't believe it's the track. He goes left, he goes right. It'll just be interesting to see what turns up. I mean, there's a couple that you'd have a lot of respect for, and I can see there being a very strong pace. But again, if it's not a strong pace, we'll make it. a strong pace. So
that's the thing.
Somebody else
he's
wants
so
to go
versatile
quicker.
now, isn't he? You can almost ride him any sort of way.
He'll go his gallop, but if somebody's going quicker, well, then so be it.
Okay, right, let's move on and take a look at the cross-country, which is also on the same day. Mr. Coffey, he's had 2 runs over the cross-country fences, second on each occasion, 9-1 with Unibet. What do you think? 9-1 for Mr. Coffey to win the
The strangest way, wouldn't it, for a 10-year-old horse to break his maiden over fences in the cross-country at the festival? I think that would be a record. He's just in really good order. He loved that this morning. He absolutely loved it. And he'd been missing for 2 years, ever since he ran that amazing race in the Grand National 2 years ago. And unfortunately we just got to the bottom of it that day, and it took him a couple of years to get over it. And we were going to retire him, and I did say to Lady Bamford, I've got one idea up my sleeve. Can we please just have a go? It was actually either going to go to the Hunter Chases or cross-country. And I wanted to try and go cross-country. Probably so that Nico was adamant, because he said only he can ride him in the cross country, he can't ride him in a Hunter Chase.
But it looks like he's taken to it anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the jockey enjoys it as much as the horse. It's been amazing. The first time he ran, you have to educate them the first time. And he flew home, and that's the first time he's finished a race of any description at all. He was getting there and then just wasn't finishing at all. Then we ran him. I just think the second time we might have got a bit carried away with our chances and rode him too prominent, and he was doing a little bit much too soon, which is what he can do. I think he'd probably better hidden away for a bit longer. I mean, to be very honest with you, the way he is now, if I thought he'd get into the Grand National, which I don't think he would, you'd be seriously thinking about coming back for that. But we've always said we're going to go cross country, and that's the plan, and it would be fantastic if that could happen.
Okay, we'll talk about the handicaps once we've done the main graded races. So we'll look at Thursday now. The Stayers Hurdle. You've won it twice. Russell back in '89 and Bacchanal in 2000. You've got one runner this year, Lucky Place. Very unexposed sort, but particularly impressive in the Arkle Hill over 2.5. How confident are you that he can handle the step up in trip to 3 miles?
Certainly, hopefully would. Everything says he should do. He's been round Cheltenham, he's done that, at 2.5. That was a good performance. We could have run him in the 3 mile race on trials day, but that could have been very, very tough. I think he's a pretty tough horse, actually, but it would be a tough thing to do, and then, you've got to get them back in time for March. I'd thought freshen up rather than dig down. If you're going to find out whether you stay 3 miles, well, we might as well find out in the World Hurdle. It's he either gets it or he doesn't. Practicing ever, it wasn't going to tell us, except tell us to go nowhere else, because there's no alternative.
But he's a horse who, 2-3 years ago, no one had even heard of it. There was no sort of reputation for him. And do you feel he's sort of almost slipped under the radar? Has he surprised you almost?
Well, he's young yet, though. Yeah. He's very young. I mean, he's only just come out of novices. And then last year, he's one of the few we did run. And he ran in the Coral. Yeah. And he ran a very, very good race indeed. He's probably our best performer of the whole festival last year. Well, Lucia was third at the Champion Hurdle. They were about the only 2 bright lights we had. He ran great, and he was meant to go novice chasing, but the novice chase program didn't have a door for him. I mean, it was crazy. We were trying to run a whole lot of them, and they had to split them up, and he was still sat there without a run, and I popped him in the Ascot Hurdle, and he won that well, which took us into Cheltenham, which has got us where we are. I'd have to be very keen on him, because he's just got the right profile, he's got the right temperament for it. It won't worry him.
And the Stayers division is quite open as well, isn't it? There's no Paisley Park or big bucks.
No. He'd appear on paper, he's probably as near the top of the English anyway. What is going to come? Teahupoo, obviously, and Over the Lee, probably the other one.
Home of the Lee.
Home of the Lee.
Teahupoo.
Yeah. They seem to be the sort of top Irish protagonists. I mean, they're good horses, but
Not as good as Lucky Place.
Maybe not.
We'll find out. Again, we'll stick with it with the big guns, and then we'll move on to the handicaps. The Triumph Hurdle. This is a race you've got a particularly good record in, Nicky. You always tend to follow your juveniles. We've seen LULAMBA and PALLADIUM both have a little gallop round Kempton prior to this. LULAMBA 2-1 with Unibet, PALLADIUM 12-1. Both of them just had one run over hurdles in the UK. Has the betting got it right? Is LULAMBA your number one hope?
Well, you'd have to say what he did at Ascot that day was visually impressive. Some of that form's worked out well enough. I would have liked the second horse to have seen that one win the Adonis, but the Adonis form still stacks up to a LULAMBA. He's just got a very good, wonderful, laid-back temperament. He's only had 2 runs in his life. He's like a pro. And he jumps beautifully, and he travels, and he's done everything right. He's for the future. He's not your typical Triumph Hurdle horse. But on the other hand, you know, he deserves to go there, and I think he probably deserves to be favourite. I mean, for once, we don't know what's coming from Ireland, but the Willie Mullins Racing Festival didn't seem to throw up anything very terrifying. I'm sure they've got plenty. The English look probably better. Old India Dock, East India Dock. That'll be a double East India Express and East India Dock, both coming in at Cheltenham. How about that? He does look quite good. He goes a good gallop, so there's going to be a hare. I just think he's a thorough horse. He's a chaser virtually for next year, but we'll see what happens.
Obviously, Sergino didn't get his chance to run in the race last year, but can you make any comparisons with the two at this stage, 2 weeks before Cheltenham?
Well, I can, because I couldn't tell you LULAMBA is a certainty. If Sergino had got fit and well into the Triumph Hurdle last year, he would have been a certainty. I mean, I haven't seen many better 4-year-olds than he was at the time. He's very, very good. Sadly, he's not with us this year either, so he's missed 2 Cheltenhams out of 2, but one day we'll get him there.
So what can you tell us about PALLADIUM? You had him entered in the Adonis, you decided not to run. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, one was the reason and one was the outcome, because if I'd have brought him here, I wouldn't have run him, because that ground was horrible on Saturday. And luckily I put LULAMBA was in the race as well, and we ummed and ahed which way to go, what to do, and finally decided just at the end of the day, do we need to do this? And our answer to that was no, we don't. You're too close to Cheltenham. I've run in it before, won in it before, and once certainly, if not twice, paid the consequences of trying to get a quick one more run in before and paying the penalty with injuries. And just didn't need it. LULAMBA, we never really thought about running him again. PALLADIUM in the first instance after his win at Huntingdon was that's where he ought to come to. He's come to here. And again, he's got a lot of experience on the flat. He knows all about racing. I just figured he didn't need to. And as I say, if I had brought him here, I'd be surprised if we hadn't taken him out on the day, because that wouldn't have helped them at all. That wasn't a good prep race.
I was at Huntingdon when he made his debut, and there were a few people, that wasn't quite impressive as we hoped, because of course he cost a few quid. What were your thoughts after that?
Yeah, I can see where that was coming from, but I mean, he was out on his own for an awful long way. He's a wonderful temperament for a colt. Laid back and doesn't fuss about anything. Eats, sleeps, drinks, works. A charming horse, absolutely, and a beautiful looking horse too. I mean, the idea is one day he's going to be a stallion.
Is that something that's in the back of your mind, though? Bearing in mind
he's had
a stallion career, you probably don't want to get it wrong on
the back of his mind or my mind? I'm not the stallion.
No. But for his
career,
of
course he is. I mean, he's great. He's won a Group 1 on the flat.
Yeah.
And he's won a maiden at Huntingdon. That's on his CV. So there you go. Listen, that was a perfectly good performance. He jumped great. I mean, Nick had purposely had him in the bottom of a couple of hurdles. That's what you've got to learn to do. He won very, very comfortably indeed. And the form has worked out extremely well. Two things. One, there were two divisions that day, and he was 6 seconds faster than the other division, which wasn't a bad race because we were second in that with a decent mare. And 6 seconds is a long way. And, you know, I just think he's enjoying it. And I don't see why he shouldn't. I really don't.
So can we assume that Nico de Boer will ride LULAMBA, or is that still...
We've never really discussed it. I mean, he would have, you know, if he had run in the Adonis, Nico would have ridden him there and been able to ride both horses. James knows both horses anyway, so it doesn't. That's not something that worries me. I mean, I know it'll change the profile of both horses if suddenly there was a Nico rides Palladium sort of thing, and one's, as you say, 2-1 and one's 12-1. It would be a bit of a surprise, I suppose, but it's something that doesn't worry us.
And looking further down the line, what do you anticipate doing with Palladium?
Well, I don't think he'll do it again, certainly not this season. I think the idea would be to go back to the flat.
Because someone said you fancied a trip down to Flemington in November.
Well, I would, but I mean, I think he'd probably be in the hands of, you know, the flat boys will take over it after we've finished our bit, I suspect.
Okay, right. Okay, let's get stuck into the handicaps. You've got the County Hurdle, the Potemps, the Martin Pipe as well. I'll just give you a few names and you can tell me what you're sort of thinking at this stage. In Post 12, we saw him work at Kempton this morning. He's entered in the Coral Cup and a few others as well. Impressive at Newbury back at the Hennessy meeting. We haven't seen him since then. Has that been the plan?
Well, no, it wasn't, because the Lanzarote was always the plan. There was a £100,000 race this year, and of course we lost it to the frost. That was the route was Newbury, Kempton, here, Cheltenham, and that was simple. 2.5 miles. So he would be Coral. I suspect he's going to be in the Martin. He is in the Martin Pipe as well. But he's just very laid back. He shows you nothing at home at all. Absolutely nothing. But he's enjoying his racing.
Okay, we'll stick with the hurdlers and then we'll look at the chasers. Jericho de Repine, qualified for the Potemps.
Potemps, I would think, almost certainly. Might just pop some cheek pieces on him. Yeah.
What do you make of Jericho now? Because this time last year he was your main supreme hope.
Well, early in the year he was, yeah. He fell out of it a bit in the end. He's still a beautiful horse and he's a lovely horse. We went to go novice chasing and that was a disaster at Sandown. He completely blew the lid off the kettle before the race in the saddling boxes. Shouldn't have run it. I mean, we ummed and ahed whether to even go down to the start, but we were all there and AP was there and we ummed and ahed and he went down to the start and he never got into a rhythm in his jumping, which has been brilliant at home. I mean, he looks a chaser. He should be chasing. Be very disappointed and surprised if he isn't chasing next year.
So that is something you'll have a look at
again?
Yeah,
but there was obviously no point in going down that road after Christmas. So we popped him in the Potemps qualifying. It's amazing how green he was in that race. I think he'd have learnt a lot from that. He was in the ruck and the maul of some ghastly ground and a lot of horses, and he was just very green about the whole thing. But I think we can sharpen up a fair bit on that.
And that was his first run over 3 as well, wasn't it?
It was, so yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit of guesswork in it, but I think he got the trip all right.
Okay. Beau Zenith is an interesting contender. A winner of 3 races from 7 starts. You've got him in the Martin Pipe as well as the Coral Cup. Again, we've seen him work this morning. What do you think?
Coral is the plan, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it always has been, to be fair.
Okay.
And he loves soft ground. I mean, we took him out a couple of times because the ground was too good.
No Ordinary Joe.
He turns up every year. He'll turn up in one of them, yeah. He ran very well the other day. Yeah, I did. I pleased him.
And I see he was ridden by Callum Pritchard at Warwick. Is that a sort of mention towards
No, it wasn't, because what happened on the day, Freddie Gordon got ill, and I was going to claim off him, so we continued to claim off him. Right. And so he was called up. That wasn't a sort of... That wasn't practicing for the Martin Pipe or anything,
okay,
no.
Fine.
No.
Captain Morgs, he always turns up. Where
he turns up, he'll turn up in one or the other, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Keep it nice and
I mean, if
simple.
we've got 4 and 5, we'll equal it up. It
Yeah.
won't make a lot. It's interesting, do you know, the Martin Pipe probably has a better record of producing a lot of very, very good horses come out of both these races. Gold Cup winners, Champion Hurdle winners.
Yeah.
They do. And it's amazing what turns up. And you mentioned poor old First Street, it was earlier in the week. He got beaten in the county hurdle, giving £2 to an unknown Irish horse. He got beaten 2 lengths, giving £2 to State Man. That's how competitive these, and that's why they jumped the thing so you've got to run 5 times, because it would have actually, it will keep a few of them out of it.
Yeah.
But that's how competitive they be. And the Martin Pipe has historically produced a lot of very, very good horses.
You actually won the first ever running of the Martin Pipe.
What was that, Utopia Day Board? No.
2009, horse called Andy Town.
Andy Town, good Lord, that was the first running of the Martin Pipe.
Now, talk about the Martin Pipe. The shortest price of your runners, you've got lots of entries in it, is East India Express, 129, 2 from 2 this season. One of them here at Kempton, the other Ascot. Last of those was on Boxing Day. Freddie Gordon was in the plate. I mean, it all bodes well, doesn't it?
Well, but it's obviously he's going to stay on it. We'll run in that because he knows him. He's won on him twice, which is great. Horse as well. I mean, he's in very good form. They've had a great fun season with him and keep it rocking.
What about La Pinsonnière? You've got her in the mares and you've also got her in the handicaps as well. Is she likely to run at Cheltenham?
She'll go somewhere. I've got a little plan where she could run in a mares race next week, which takes her into... there's just a mares novice hurdle next week, which takes her into something, what are we looking at, 2.5 miles at, but not at Cheltenham. It's possible.
Okay.
She's improving.
The Potemps, we checked on Jericho de Repenay. Dodgy the Great, that was an eye-catching run, I thought.
Doddy, Jericho and
Shannon
Bob would all be intended. Be interesting, the weights are being published for all these races this morning as we speak, so we'll know a lot more this afternoon. But I mean, I hope they'll just about creep in. They should do. Potemps is going to be, there might be a few more runners in the Potemps this year because the winners get an automatic ticket, which is probably a good idea. I mean, you could have a winner of a qualifier that didn't get in because he wasn't high enough rated. And they've now said, okay, if you have one, you get in regardless of where you are in the handicap. So it might just, we might just struggle, which would be disappointing because I'd like to run all 3.
Okay. Fantastic Lady, she had a gallop round Kempton. She's in the Kim Muir, is that the target for her?
That's the plan, only on the grounds that she won't get into the Grand National. I don't think, if anything ever made us look, there's a Grand National forfeit, so today. So it'd be interesting to see how many come out of the National just today to see how, I mean, from Highland's point of view, he needs 15 to come out at the moment. Yeah. So it would be nice if half a dozen came out today to,
so you know where you stand.
You know, to tighten him up near the top.
Yeah, okay.
And her.
So if we take out, you know, your Constitution Hills and your Jonbons, of the other, which is a pretty good sub-team, which horse are you most looking forward to running? Which horse do you think has got the best chance, has the biggest value? You touched there on Doddy the Great, that was a good effort.
Doddy, I mean, those Potemps horses have all got a really good chance, I think, but you know how competitive those races are, they're brutal. Mr. Coffey would be high on my list of the handicappers and of the better price horses with the lucky places and things like that. They've all got chances. So does everybody else.